History is full of people who desperately want to forget their identity. People who change their names, flee across borders, and erase their pasts. But for a human being, to be completely erased from the world, for not a single trace of their existence to remain, that defies the laws of nature. An echo always remains. December 1st, 1948, Somerton Beach, on the coast of Adelaide, Australia. Early morning walkers noticed a man resting against the seawall. He was dressed impeccably. A tailored suit, a neat tie, and perfectly polished leather shoes. But there was something immediately wrong. Despite lying on a beach, there was not a single grain of sand on his shoes. When the police arrived, they realized the man was not sleeping. His body was completely cold. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood on his collar, no tears in his jacket. He was just sitting there. His physical condition was flawless. He was in his mid-40s with an incredibly athletic build. Strangely, his toes were wedged together like a professional ballet dancer, and his calf muscles were unusually pronounced. They emptied his pockets. They found an unused train ticket, a bus ticket, a comb, a pack of chewing gum, and a pack of cigarettes. But the most important items were entirely missing. There was no wallet, no identification card, no passport. There was absolutely nothing on his person to indicate his name, his profession, or where he came from. When the investigators looked closer, a chilling reality set in. The jacket, the shirt, the trousers, even the tie. Every single manufacturer label on his clothing had been meticulously cut away with a razor. Someone had made a systematic, calculated effort to erase this man's identity, not just on paper, but from the physical world. Was this the perfect murder? An erased spy? Welcome to the archives of blood. Initially, the police assumed the man had suffered a simple heart attack, but the autopsy report sent shockwaves through the medical community. His internal organs had completely failed. His spleen and liver were massively enlarged. There was extreme congestion in his stomach. The chief pathologist's conclusion was absolute. This man did not die of natural causes. He was poisoned. But the truly terrifying part was that the toxicology report found absolutely zero trace of any known poison in his blood. Modern science could not detect what killed him. Forensic experts stated that the only way this was possible was through the use of incredibly rare plant-based toxins like digitalis or strophanthin, chemicals that dissolve rapidly in the body, leaving no chemical signature. These were not poisons used by common criminals or street thugs. These were phantom poisons, tools utilized almost exclusively by professional assassins and covert intelligence agencies. His last meal, eaten just hours before his death, was a simple meat pasty. Investigators theorized the undetectable toxin was injected directly into the food, but by whom? Desperate for answers, police sent his fingerprints across Australia to Scotland Yard in the UK and to the FBI in America. Archives were torn apart. The result? Absolute silence. His fingerprints existed in no database on Earth. It was as if this man had never lived on this planet prior to 1948 and simply materialized on that beach to die. Months later, in January 1949, a breakthrough. An unclaimed brown leather suitcase was discovered in the luggage room of the Adelaide railway station. It was checked in exactly 1 day before the body was found. When police forced it open, they found that the labels on the items inside had also been meticulously removed. Only a few items remained bearing the name T. Keane, but there was no missing person named T. Keane anywhere in the world. The contents belonged to a highly organized traveler: clean clothes, shaving gear, and a specialized stenciling brush, a tool commonly used on merchant marine cargo ships. But the most damning piece of evidence was a small sewing kit. Inside was a spool of distinctive orange barber thread, a brand that was not available in Australia. It was an American import. Investigators examined the thread. They found that a hidden repair made to the pocket of the Somerton Man's trousers was stitched with that exact same rare orange thread. The suitcase was definitively his, yet the suitcase provided no name, just confirmation that he was a foreigner and that his identity had been scrubbed clean. But in April, an investigator decided to re-examine the clothing, and he found a terrifying detail everyone had missed. Sewn deep inside the waistband of the trousers was a microscopic hidden fob pocket. It was completely invisible from the outside, and resting inside that secret pocket was a tiny, tightly rolled piece of paper. The police carefully unrolled the scrap of paper with tweezers. Printed on it in an ornate Persian font were just 2 words: Tamam Shud. Translated, it means, "It is ended" or "finished." This was no longer a John Doe case. It was an intricate, dark puzzle. Linguists immediately identified the scrap. It had been torn from the final page of the Rubaiyat, a book of poetry written by the 12th century Persian astronomer Omar Khayyam. The theme of the book was profound: the fleeting nature of life, living without regret, and accepting the arrival of death with absolute silence. Was this why the man looked so peaceful on the beach? A massive public appeal was launched. The police needed to find the exact copy of the Rubaiyat that had the words Tamam Shud ripped from its final page. In an unbelievable coincidence, a man walked into the police station. He handed them a rare edition of the Rubaiyat. The final page had been precisely cut with a razor, exactly where the words used to be. Under a microscope, the torn paper from the dead man's pocket fit the torn page of the book flawlessly. The man claimed he found the book tossed into the back seat of his unlocked car, parked near the beach the night before the body was discovered. But the book held a much darker secret. When detectives examined the back cover under an ultraviolet lamp, they found faint indentations. Someone had used a pencil to press heavily into the cover, writing a sequence of letters. 5 lines of seemingly random capital letters: WRGOABABD, MLIAOI, WTBIMPANETP. The second line was struck out aggressively. This was not random scribbling. This was a military-grade cipher. The book was immediately handed over to naval intelligence. The brightest cryptologists of the era worked for weeks to crack the sequence. They failed. Naval intelligence concluded it was likely a one-time pad cipher, an unbreakable encryption method requiring a specific keyword that only the sender and receiver possess. But beneath the unbreakable code, the police found something much more dangerous: a faintly written telephone number. And that number traced back to a house located just 400 meters away from where the body was found. The phone number belonged to a young nurse named Jessica Thompson. In police files, she was referred to strictly by her pseudonym, Jestyn. She was the key to the entire mystery. Detectives knocked on her door. Jessica was incredibly nervous. She admitted that she had owned a copy of the Rubaiyat and had given it to an army lieutenant during World War II. But that lieutenant was still alive, since the body had already begun to decompose. The police brought Jessica to the station and presented her with a lifelike plaster death mask cast from the Somerton Man's face. According to Detective Paul Lawson's official notes, the moment Jessica saw the bust, she froze. She was completely taken aback, described as looking ready to faint. She looked down and refused to look at the face again. Every detective in the room knew she recognized him. It was undeniable, yet Jessica stubbornly maintained, "I do not know him." And without hard evidence, the police could not force her to speak. Why was she lying? Why was everyone silent? Investigators began to realize this wasn't a standard homicide. The shadow of the Cold War was looming over the beach. Adelaide was not just a quiet coastal city. It was the gateway to the Woomera test range, a top-secret missile and intelligence base operated by the British and Australian military. It was a hotbed for Soviet spies. Was the Somerton Man an erased Soviet agent? Was the Unbreakable code in the book a set of classified missile launch data meant to be smuggled back to Moscow? His flawless physique, specifically his pronounced calf muscles and pointed toes, perfectly matched the physical profile of a professional Russian ballet dancer. A common cover identity for Soviet operatives. Perhaps Jessica was not just a nurse. Perhaps she was a communications handler. And perhaps that night the Somerton Man was compromised, poisoned with an undetectable toxin, and dumped on the beach as a message to his handlers. He took his secrets to the grave. In 1949, the man was buried beneath a tombstone that simply read, "Here lies the unknown man, who was found at Somerton Beach," hundreds of miles away from whoever he truly was. Decades later, modern DNA analysis suggested he may have been an electrical engineer. But no DNA test can explain the invisible poison, the uncracked code, or why every single label was cut from his clothing. 70 years have passed. The code remains unbroken, the poison remains unidentified. And Jessica Thompson died without ever confessing her true connection to the man on the beach. Can a human being truly be erased? If a ghost leaves behind a cipher, is he really dead? Let me know your theory on the code in the comments below. Subscribe to the Archives of Blood.